Hello and thank you for joining us on Conversations. My name is Diva Mom, and today we will be taking a look at a topic I think is critical at best. Are Nigerians overly religious? Francis Duri is here with me. We all know him.
A pleasure, Diva.
I want to believe we all know him, though. For those of you who watch Nollywood, you can't say you don't know. And of course, my own dear friend Zainab Sadiq.
Hi.
So we'll be exploring this topic. But before we go to that, let's take a pop out into the streets to find out from Nigerians. Do Nigerians think we are more religious than we are moral?
Unequivocally, yes. We are more a religious set of persons than moralistic set of persons. Everybody in Nigeria tends to be religious conscious without paying a little or no cognizance to morality. And that is why you see churches cropping up, mosques cropping up, without the persons occupying them reflecting them out in their character. It's a problem. We are more religious minded.
By what plays out in our everyday lives in Nigeria, we are being more religious than realistic or moralistic. Because, from the way we've been brought up, or the way we bring up our kids, we just teach them the way of our religion, forgetting the fact that we have one creator. I'm a Christian, and I believe we should show love, despite the fact that we may have different faiths with our fellow brothers. We should show that oneness, that love. But it's so unfortunate in Nigeria, we just tend to worship religion instead of the true God.
In the church today, I believe our prayers help us a lot. And sometimes, even our pastors in the church, sometimes I try to see some of their mistakes in the church. But according to the scripture, we are not supposed to judge anybody. In church today, I believe that one's supposed to know, as a Christian, what is good and what is bad. Like before I do anything, I believe that my conscience will first of all judge me before even God himself. Because I still believe that God is in me. You understand? So in my life, I don't believe in doing any bad thing to anybody. Because before I do it, my conscience will first of all question me and tell me that this thing you're doing is a very bad thing.
I don't think Nigerians are religious, and I don't think Nigeria or Nigerians are moral. Because you see, every society is guided by something, by ethics or like a code of conduct. And sometimes this is driven from one religion or the other. But here in Nigeria, you find people who claim to be religious just being fanatics because they don't do what their religion asks them to do. They don't follow, the principles of their religion. And this affects the society, and it affects their morality as a whole. Because you see the things happening in this country, you can't say it's a religious problem that is peculiar to either this religion or that religion, because we are all collective here: Muslims, Hindus, Christians, and you see all sorts of people doing all sorts of things, and I don't think it's because of their religion or whether the society is moral or not.
Well, like in Nigeria now, what we are more concerned about is this Christian-Muslim issue. Instead of concentrate on the more activities that are happening to us in Nigeria, like unemployment rate, insecurity and all that. So we concentrate more on the religion aspect because Christians don't want to associate with Muslims, and Muslims don't want to even have anything to do with Christians at all. So that is just my own. I don't have anything to say to that.
When Jesus came, he did not say you should divide Christianity, but you come and made so many denominations. The same thing when Muhammad came, he did not say you made denomination, you are making denomination. When they go to Jerusalem, they pray in the same church. When they go to Saudi Arabia, Mecca is the same. When they come back here, they divide in their own personal interest, not in the interest of the religion. Nobody will carry a verse from the Quran or the Bible and give you, but they will give you a pamphlet to attend their own ceremonial in their churches and their mosques. Thank you.
So you've heard the views, and I think it's a good question. Are we more religious than moral? But maybe we want to differentiate what that's about, because for some people it's the same thing.
Yeah.
For me, I would say that being religion or religiosity or things like that, it's all about the rites and methods and ways, the approach you bring to your particular faith. All those things that encompass the different things you do in regards to your specific faith, the place where you worship, the books that are attached to your brand of worship, and so on and so forth. All the physicality of it. I could be wrong, but that's what I've always thought. While the morality of it for me is your innate sense of right and wrong. So for me, if I were to explain it, that's the perspective I'd be taking it from. I don't know if we have...
you know, when you said that, you were all discussing this before we started. I never said a word. I think they're exactly the same thing. As you said, religiosity, being religious, means obeying the doctrines of whatever faith you follow, you know, doing what God says you should do, whatever faith it is. And God has commanded us to be moral. So being religious, being spiritual, being moral, being right thinking, being God-fearing, I think it's like saying you separate an egg yolk from the white, you will always have a bit of the white on the yolk. You cannot be moral and not religious, because religions instruct you to be moral, and you cannot be religious and not moral, because then it means you are not fully religious. Because I think being religious means you are aspiring to be as perfect a person as you are, because that's what most religions are teaching us to be. So I'm really finding it difficult to separate the two. If you're religious, I think you're moral.
Yeah, I want to come in here from a totally different perspective. I think there's something missing between religion and moral, and that is spirituality. Yes. Spirituality is missing, because it's like you teach a child, you go to school, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that, and the child gets back home and is doing the same thing, and is going against the same thing he learned in school. It means there's a problem with self. So you can go to church, take all the doctrines, after the man speaks, the pastor, the imam, after they finish talking, you will more or less be manifesting a biological process. You hear, but you did not listen.
Yeah.
Then when you hear, you do not listen, there's no tendency for you to like retain that which you heard. It takes self. It takes the power of self for you to like, you know, that which you heard, to like turn it into something that becomes a virtue in you, that you use to like, you know, harness every aspect of morality. So whether we like it or not, spirituality is the vehicle through which you can give birth to morality. And what does spirituality say? Your belief system in, or your desire to find a meaning through religion. So religion comes, do not kill. I've heard it. How much of me gets into that to the point that, you know, I can give it out. So when I can't practice that which was preached to me, it means the vehicle that takes that which has been preached to the point of manifestation is either weak or lacking.
And that's the spirituality.
That's spirituality. Because for you to find God, for you to understand the meaning of life, for you to find purpose, it's a spiritual thing. So what now happens is that, you know, religion enhances spirituality.
Yes.
To give birth to morality. So if you take and self is weak, there's nothing you can do, and that's the problem we have. People hear but do not listen. if they are able, if they listen, they can contain, then they can give out. So that's why we talk, we go to church every day, preach, do things. At the end of the day, when it comes to
practicing it,
walk the talk, it becomes a problem because of self. So for me, I think if self is not harnessed to a point where it can actually contain spirituality to enhance religion. You go to church, what does religion do, you know? Religion says, you know, adherence to this doctrine. So if self is not right, you cannot adhere. You don't obey when there's something wrong with self. You don't obey. The person who goes to kill, the person who goes to kidnap, is a self-government that has gone wrong. If that self-government were right, you will understand the power of religion, the doctrines, to yield forth the morals that religion demands. That's my take.
Which begs the question I want to ask you, because now, if I understand, we now have three separate things: religion, spirituality, and morality. But if I understand you, you are saying without the spirituality, you know, you don't have a full component. So it's like they are sort of intertwined.
Yes.
So from what we are saying now, do we think Nigerians have, because we can have some people that are actually moral, but they don't believe in religion, or they don't adhere to anything religious.
Absolutely. And I think that's where there's a bit of a conundrum. I know people who are good people. They're really good people. At least judging from the outside you cannot know what's in somebody's heart. The way they deal with people, they seem to have an active conscience. They're kind, they're thoughtful, they're forgiving, they're generous, and so on. And you won't see every Sunday they're sitting at home watching TV, or they're going to a friend's place, or going to watch football, and so on and so forth. Going to church, maybe it might happen like 2 or 3 times in a year, you know, they're so... And then you meet these people who will attend every activity in church. Right. In fact, sometimes on Sunday, if there are like 3 or 4 services or masses, they want to go through the whole thing, and so on and so forth. And you encounter them in the office, and somebody just carried maybe a pen, they left, and they unleash hell on that person. They make sure the person gets a query. They do this. They themselves, the housemaid they have in the house, they treat her like a slave. She cannot eat decent food. She's supposed to be in school, but she is not. And yet this is somebody who spends practically every waking moment in church. And for me, sadly, that's where the disconnect is. You described what should be the ideal. If you are religious, automatically it should be that you are moral. Automatically it should be that your spiritual consciousness is awakened. But that is not always the truth. I can't count the number of times I'm reading something in a paper and a pastor or an imam has done the unthinkable. And this is the person who is trying to mold and shape other people.
Yeah, this is my take to that. It still boils down to one thing: self. It still boils down to self. And it's the issue of more, let's call it unconscious incompetence. When you do not know that you don't know, that's a problem. So when you go to church, it's religion. But when you discover the meaning of life, the purpose of life, that as a human being, first and foremost, I should be pro-creation. As a human being, you know, I should be pro-humanity. As a human being, I should be pro anything that adds value to mankind. I use the word here, more or less in the words of Miles Monroe, who says, you know, the best government in life is self-government. The young lady who stands on the road is standing there because her self-government is wrong. The man who goes to kidnap. So if it is wrong, what happens? The man who goes to church, you listen to the pastor. There's something the pastor did to himself for him to be able to stand there to preach to you. So the first question is not for you to just come and take and go. It's for you to understand God for yourself.
Yeah, I think I agree with what he said about knowledge, because that's the biggest problem facing us when we are talking about this. There's massive lack of knowledge. and then the more dangerous one, half-baked knowledge.
That's right.
Which a lot of people, including the upper clergy, suffer. And then when you see somebody doing wrong, something morally wrong, and you talk to them, they will be like, no, my pastor said it's okay, or my imam said you could do that. I know I've had arguments with people on this, you know.
Or you even get, this is how we have been doing it.
This is how we, in fact, in the Quran it was mentioned, God kept telling about people who, when a prophet is sent to them, they'll be like, no, our fathers from times of old, this is what they have been doing. And unfortunately, you know, back to what you said about lack of knowledge, people really do not even understand the concept of who God is, his power, the might he has, and what is awaiting you on Judgment Day. So actually people sometimes just get careless because there's no retribution on earth. It's not like in the days of Sodom and Gomorrah when you do wrong and they overturn the cities, you know. So people have become complacent. Some people don't know. Some people don't care. Some people really think God is not that powerful.
They don't want to know.
Some people think they can talk their way out of it on Judgment Day or pay. Yeah. There was somebody who even said to me when I was talking to them about something to do with embezzlement and fraud, you know, some petty, you know, embezzlement and fraud. And they're like, I don't think God really has time to deal with these kind of issues on Judgment Day. But you see, this is all lack of knowledge. And as you said, some people don't know they don't know.
They don't
Some
know.
people don't want to know. They really don't. And that's the major, unless we go back to intensive formal religious training, which really is not on ground anymore. Islamic school, Sunday school, we are not addressing those issues. We are just reading the Bibles and the Qurans. We are not, you know, going through, as they said, you were quoting a Bible verse just before we started, and you said you thought it wasn't a fair verse. Till you now sat down and you absorbed and you assimilated what it meant in relation to today's world. How many people do that? How many people just realize when they say you love thy neighbor as yourself? How many people really understand, you know, breaking it down to pieces? People don't, and some people don't want to know.
In response to what you said, particularly with regard to half knowledge or total ignorance, the truth is I don't even know which one is worse. Because to me, they're both so bad. You see, in Islam, for instance, there's so much in Arabic and all this and all this. So I want to forgive people who maybe language barrier. I want to give you that benefit of the doubt if you're getting. But English is our lingua franca in Nigeria. It's the language of instruction in schools. Bibles are used as textbooks for CRK, I don't know what it's called now, CRS, in schools. If you're from a Christian home, you have it in the house, and so on and so forth. But you will not read it. You won't read it. And then you will wait for a pastor to come and tell you what that will now make you decide that for some reason, because you are looking for a baby and you've not been able to get pregnant in 10 years of marriage, this man of God is supposed to do something intimate with you and you'll get pregnant. If you had ever bothered to read your Bible even once, you'll know that there's nowhere in the Bible that supports adultery or fornication. And that's the two things that are happening right there.
It's like he said, that's the disconnect between the religious and the spirituality.
That's spirituality.
That's a disconnect.
I'm even talking of the people who will not even pick up the Bible and read. If you hear something absurd, go and cross-check.
There are a lot of people that read the Bible and do what you said.
The point is, let me look at it from this perspective. Nothing in life is difficult. It's either you're strong or you're weak. If you're weak for it, it's difficult. If you're strong, you solve it. So that kind of person you're talking about is weak mentally.
Yes.
You see how it still goes back to self? If it's weak mentally, it means spirituality is weak. So at the end of the day, just like you say, whether it's half-baked ignorance or fully baked ignorance, it is worse. So the truth about it is that in search of whether it's religiosity or morality, spirituality is a pivot that actually ties it all. That know God for yourself. When you know God for yourself, you're able to define who you are from the perspective of the God you have known for yourself. If you were created in the image of God, When last did you actually sit down to understand the attributes of this God I was created in his image? If this God has the attribute of mercy, how much mercy have I given out? If this God has the attribute of dominion, to what extent, you know? So at the end of the day, you go take what the pastor has preached, it is fine. But don't end there. Go beyond it. What the pastor does is to open an access to information that you have to do the rest. But the pastor says it, pastor goes back and gets deeper and deeper, reads more and more, to be able to come back on Sunday to dish out another one for you. You take what pastor has said, after Sunday, you keep it. You go about your activities. It can't work. And that's why
apart from that, these people who, the clerics are human beings.
Yes.
They are fallible. They can make mistakes.
That is why, as he said, you need to know God for your own self. And then you make, because sometimes you hear people saying they are going to a holy man to pray for them. You have a set of lips, the same set of lips that that person has. But that's where I think the half-baked information is coming, that half-baked knowledge. You know, in reading religious scriptures and hearing historical stories religiously, you hear about saints, you hear about holy men, and somehow it translates into us thinking that there are some people closer to God than we can ever be.
Yes.
And we accept these people to be intermediaries, and that's where it comes to where you're saying, where they say, okay, you have to be intimate with this holy person to, you know, to be able to get that close to God and get God to give you a child, for example. So that half-baked knowledge, but sometimes it's good to have no knowledge at all, because your mind is now a clean slate.
Yes.
You can you can start afresh. It's like somebody, I always say, people that have converted from one religion to another usually are better in their new religion than the people that have been born and raised in that religion.
Absolutely.
Because they were convinced. They were convinced enough to leave the faith of their forefathers, the faith they were born and raised in. They were convinced to join that new religion. But the rest of us that were born and raised in our religions is because, as you said, we found our fathers and forefathers doing, so we just went with the flow.
That's, you see, where
we accepted it or not.
Yeah.
So there are some parts that maybe we are not too happy with, so we fix it a bit, we tweak it, and that's where we start going off. That's where we start deviating. That's where we have the problems we have now. You know, people just want to fix a bit because they were just born and they found it. They take it for granted, you know, unlike converts, unlike reverts. You don't have that issue. So I maintain that half-baked knowledge in this case. And then culture. Nigerians have culture, and our culture, in most cases, our culture takes over religion. In most cases.
I don't think it's a Nigeria thing.
Well, okay, maybe because we are talking about Nigerians, and I'm a Nigerian.
I think religion and culture tend to blend in, kind of. And let me explain. The West brought us Christianity. Christians tend to copy a lot of Western culture as opposed to the Christian faith.
Exactly
or
what
Christian practices.
I wanted to ask you that. I said, but is the Christian faith originally from the Western world?
No, of course it's not.
So they were the intermediaries.
They introduced it. Of course, it came from the Middle East.
So they are not the holy men. They are now the holy men in this case.
They took it from the Middle East, modified it to suit their own culture, and then
brought it down here.
Exported it to us down here. So when you assimilate your Christianity, you pattern it after the Western culture. In fact, you forget that there are elements of this thing that are westernized, that this is not actually what the Bible says. Oh, it doesn't quite occur to you. You're just that way because that's the channel through which it came. And I dare say Islam too. I'm sure that there are aspects of Islam we practice here that's been affected by the Arabic culture a lot, and so on and so forth. But if we actually remove the cultural aspects of the people that introduced it to us and look strictly at that book and the way it is practiced, we'd probably have something slightly different from what we are doing right now.
And now it has become two steps, because as you said, the cultures of the people that introduced these religions to us, but then now our own cultures.
Yes.
When you look at this country, it's sort of divided itself. Majority of Muslims are in the northern part, and Islam in the north is practiced with in a lot of cases with northern culture, put on it. And then some parts of Western Nigeria too. You see a lot of Muslims in the western part of this country practicing Islam with so much Western flavor. They'll actually make those in the north, the Muslim north, look at them and say, are these people even Muslims? But they're doing it on that. So when you go to the southern part where we have the majority of Christians, and there are Christian northerners as well, you still see elements of the cultures of these parts that the Westerners will not recognize. That the Arabians that brought the Islam to us will not recognize.
For instance, in my state, in Benue State, let me restrict myself to my ethnic group. In my ethnic group, I think I can barely count 10 people who are Muslims.
Okay.
So we are predominantly Christian of different sects and all that. However, if you go to the villages, practically everybody is practicing polygamy. Which Christianity frowns at, does not tolerate, does not abide, The person who is the choir mistress in the Catholic Church is somebody's wife number 3. And they're very happy with themselves. And I'm like, do you know you're a concubine?
These are the people that will say to you, God will not really pay attention.
No, they're not even thinking about that. They've taken the bits of the religion they're comfortable with, and they're working with that, and they're allowing,
that suits them,
they're allowing culture to do the rest.
I don't think in gender boxes at all. I just get on with it.
A man that would dare to ask the wife, who do you think you are? That is a real man.
In fact, our husbands are our firstborns. The husband needs more attention than even the children.
It's not only about work, it's not only about family. They need to take the time to look after themselves, and we don't. We don't do that.
They took my money. I paid every fees. I never asked to be hoisted as a governor. I wanted to be allowed to go out there and contest for the position of governorship candidate first.
There's nothing greater than looking back and seeing that while you were aspiring, you were able to inspire others.
Empower to women. Yes. We need to have more women, more multitaskers around Nigeria to get Nigeria working.
Definitely.
Welcome back. Halima just joined us during the break, and she is a regular on Conversations, and she'll be adding her voice to this all-important topic: are Nigerians overly religious? And we have explored quite a bit. We've talked about the clerics, we've talked about the people who think they know when in actual fact they don't know anything. But maybe we should expand it to the larger society. If we spend so much time in church, we spend so much time with our religious books, in our mosques, and so on and so forth. And Nigeria keeps ranking high on the corruption index. This is a reality. It's not something I'm just plucking out of the sky. Data says this is so. Our daily interactions with different people in different sectors of different cadres and age says this is so. Children, students are now in primary school. I remember there's this story I heard once of a young man who, let's say about 8-9 years of age. His teacher failed a test, he did an assignment, submitted it, and he noticed that he had bad grades. So he went home, got some biscuits, and when they gave the next assignment, he handed the biscuits over to his teacher and told her that he hoped his grades would be better next time. I was like, he's learning.
And learning fast.
He has learned fast. Primary school. But this is real.
If I may interject, what you just did now is what most of us are doing that have brought us to where we are. This child did something that my jaws are dropping. But your expression is like, yay!
Yeah, because that's sarcasm. I don't expect that out of an 8-year-old.
It didn't look I'm here. It didn't look sarcastic to me. And anyway, not just about you, but we see parents do this all the time. Children do something wrong and they don't correct them.
No, but obviously I'm being sarcastic. But since you raised it, I'm voicing the fact that, and that's why, you know, I mentioned corruption, then I mentioned that story. So obviously I'm being sarcastic about it. I don't expect a child of any age child to be trying to bribe anybody. And certainly not a teacher.
Because of the environment is toxic. The environment is toxic.
This is my take. You know, every child out there has a content provider to the thoughts of that child.
Parents.
The thought processes of that child is dependent on the parents, environment, people they meet. So, the precept of the child is dependent on all those people. So when the child gets to 18, the precept automatically transforms to the child's concept, the child's thought pattern. And you cannot run away from your foundation.
That's true.
So they carry it, which still cuts across to what we are talking about, what's happening there. Before, we did not have this quick rich mentality. You know, before it wasn't there. So there was something, there was more or less a disruption. What was that disruption? So it was a negative disruption that killed value, that killed morals, that created this quick fix mentality. Systemic rot that has become endemic. That instead of parents now to look at the thing the kids are doing that are wrong, they look away. You're quick to crown your child, give your child title, because the child in 5 months, in 1 year, rolls in 10 Mercedes-Benz and they give the child a title. But there was a time that even as a child, you cannot come back with
an extra pencil.
Extra pencil.
Your parents will ask you where you got it from.
So what's wrong? And whether you like it
if I may interject, it's not just about turning their backs or turning their face from what the children are doing. I think it also has to do with the parents, what they are doing themselves.
Yeah.
They know the children are replicating them. You know, when you are doing something wrong, there's just no way you can come and tell your child, don't do it.
That's
when
right.
he can see that you are doing it, he knows. You know, I wrote a poem that says, I don't want to be confused. I don't want to be confused between what I hear and what I see. And that is where our problem is. There is a high moral decadence in the society. And yet we want to wash it and cover it with religiosity. We were pious people. We claim to know. We claim to be God-fearing. But what we do inside is different. I dare say that one major problem we have is that our human essence has been eroded. We no longer value what humanity is. And that is why all the issue of getting rich quickly comes up. It doesn't matter how you get rich. You can steal from somebody. You can...
The ends justify the means.
The ends justifies the means. Because there is high-level erosion in our human essence. We no longer care how many people die because of our actions or inactions.
That's
so
right.
It's a replication in our children and we don't care. But the danger is that after we are gone, what do we want to see behind? And how long can these children maintain the society? Because now we are claiming that the millennials are not doing what is expected. When we say, okay, give leadership to the younger ones, we say they are not ready. Have we made them ready?
Thank you.
It comes back. We'll keep going round and round in this conversation to what he said. The spirituality, which I would translate as the human essence, is gone. You go to church. You spend night vigil. You fast. You go. But it's like people that go to school and read heavy textbooks and write their exams and get A1, and 2 weeks later when you give them the same exams, they will because people are not going to church or mosque anymore to get closer to God. People are going to church or mosque just because to fulfill a religious requirement.
And sometimes it's just because you want to blend in. You don't want to be the odd person sitting at home when every other person...
There's a social... Because I can assure you, most people, if they're in societies where going to church or mosque is not really seen as something, they would not. Most people are doing it for the wrong reasons. So like people that study and cram for exams just to pass the exams, people are doing this. So at the end of this all, when they leave the churches and the mosque and they go to their places of work, they leave all that behind. As you said, they will harass anybody. They will slap the driver who did wrong. They will cheat. They'll steal. They'll come to work late. They will embezzle. They will maltreat their house helps. In fact, some people will be reading a Bible or Quran and then they'll shout at somebody, and continue. You see somebody with stickers, I'm too protected to be defended, I be my year of divine anointing, and the person is running through a red light that has 34 seconds still jumping on it. You know, so where is that? The connect is not there. People have completely divorced God and religion from daily life. Our religious scriptures are codes of conduct, but people don't know that anymore.
Meant to be codes of
conduct. Well, okay, that's their truth, and they're meant to be. But so I think this is where we are facing the problem. Unless we go back to formal instruction, unless we go back and go to church for the sake of wanting to be better Christians, unless we start reading the Bibles and the Qurans for the sake of wanting to understand what is in those books and practice them and live by them and enjoin them on others, we are going to remain in the same position or even go backwards.
I think, whether we like it or not, sometimes we keep mentioning church. I believe if there must be a change, it must start from the family.
From
unit.
the family.
Just like what you
from
said.
the family.
You know, what do you want your child to see, to do? Do it. And somehow, for me, I work with youths a lot in my church. And the truth be told, I've seen it work. I've seen a child come from a very chaotic environment. His psyche is messed up, you know, he's violent prone. When you see him, you just know that the guy has lost his bearing because of upbringing at home. It's not his fault. So you begin to mend that child. And in so short a time, you see the child turns. You see joy, you see smiles. He comes to church, he goes through the Bible, he wants to lead the pack. Which means, whether we like it or not, as parents, whether you have a child or not, the society you want to live in when you are old, if you don't build it now, it's a waste of time.
I agree.
So it's reorientation.
I agree.
We must begin to say no to the things that are happening. The cultures of embezzlement, the culture of, you know, be good only when you are in church is something that we, each and every one of us, we exhibit it in one way or the other. And we begin to ask ourselves that question. Self. What is my self-worth? If my self-worth is not projected towards pro-humanity, like we said before you came, we even talked about this. If my self-worth is not meant to protect life, protect mankind, empathy, mercy, compassion, kindness, we have that problem.
Something is
and still coming back to it, just buttressing what we've all said here. So many parents have adopted a dereliction of duty style, wherein it is the duty of the school not just to instruct in academics, but to mold the child morally. I think it's wrong, it's and bad, wrong. It's evil, it's lazy, I don't know which other word to look for it. It's equally bad to try and place it on the church. Yes, okay, the church or the mosque, our clerics have the responsibility of trying to build us up religiously, spiritually and everything, but the onus lies on the parents. Because by the time a child is 7, that child's character is molded.
You know why I am not to interrupt you, why I kept calling the religious institutions, like in my own religion, you understand? Everything is intertwined. You as a parent, to carry out your duty, you have to go exactly by the doctrines that have been laid down by the there is a code of training for parents. That's right. And if you do not follow that, then you cannot do what he said, you know. So it's still where I'm calling on that religiosity. You have to be religious. You have to obey, well, in my own religion at least, you have to obey the religious structures of parenting to even be a good parent the way he said and turn out a responsible, you know, because there's a verse in the Quran where God said, "Oh, you who believe, you know, protect yourselves and your families from hellfire whose fuel is man and stones." So there are things that as parents, you have to take the training from the religious institutions.
Well, I agree with that, because of course the religion forms the essence of our belief.
And our beings.
And our being, of course, because we all have connection to super being or God.
Yes.
You understand? We all have this belief. If only we can truly go back to practice the religion as it is. yes, the family is the foundation level. But yet, it is in the family that religion can be practiced. It is in the family that the molding of character, attitude, behavior, and every other thing can be molded. The foundation is laid. After you go out, it all depends. You know, sometimes as parents, we want to be overprotective. We say, we don't want our children to go to boarding school because we don't want to get them exposed. But I always tell parents that once you have done the nitty-gritty, what is expected of you as a parent, from the time, from 0 month to 5-6 years, if you have done what is right,
that's the crucial age.
The rest you leave it.
Build their minds wherever they are. You can sleep.
I'm no psychologist, but many parents make the mistake of trying to start molding children when they are teenagers. It's late.
No, it's very
late. You can be a parent. You are supposed to be a parent when the child is from 0 to 5. By teenage, you should be the child's friend.
That's it.
And when he becomes adolescent, you should just be his mentor. There's nothing else you can do.
That's right.
There's an observation to a point that he made. He said children normally, do what their parents do, and that's the most natural thing. But there's a new trend, or maybe it has been around for some time. I have seen parents who are good, who are kind, who are morally upright, who are strict and straight, yet they do not impart the same values on their children. From where I come from, you see parents who are, conservatively dressed. We have a dress code in my religion, everybody knows that. You see parents conservatively dressed, the father, the mother, and they're going to go out, and their children of whatever age, even 21, 22, are dressed in the exact opposite way. The parents bought those clothes, and when you dare talk and you say to them, why did nowadays children,
and I really hate that. I hate that. For instance,
people do that.
On occasion you're driving to church. There's a minor with her parents. The parent is responsibly dressed. When I say responsibly dressed, I mean bits and pieces aren't hanging out and all that. But this person who is a young teenager, maybe 13 or 14, is wearing a mini skirt that stops somewhere here. She's wearing a spaghetti strap dress. And I'm like, okay, this child doesn't earn a salary. So somebody bought her those clothes.
Right.
She's probably not married, so it's not a boyfriend or a husband. It's the parent that went and bought these skimpy things and decided that they were appropriate because she's following you, isn't she, to church.
And let me just interject. This same parent will look at another somebody
else's child
and say something nasty about the child.
It's like I use the word content provider. These are the content providers. But the truth be told, whether we like it or not, if we do not interrupt this current culture
now
by, nursing something new that will grow from ground upwards. So when a child grows from this end and comes to see this at this particular level, the child knows that, when I said it off camera, my 9-year-old is too sensitive to the point that he knows the things that he should not do, and when he sees it, he says, Daddy, look at what he is doing. It's not right. He tells you it's not right, which means if you work on that child to a large extent, if he goes to boarding school, you have built his mind to a point where nothing can influence the child.
Yes.
Because the onus lies on us parents too. You can't run away from it.
But how do the parents change this? Some parents are not even equipped because they don't even have.
And that's you just said it all, and that's why we said the school, the church.
I am lost here. The parents are not equipped. How
to impact this kind of.
Yes, some parents.
Because does it really have to do with education?
It doesn't do with
how are they raised themselves?
Yes, or some of them have lost it somewhere along the way.
That's
like I was
point.
telling you something, you were not here earlier. There are people that do things, and they didn't even know it's wrong. And unless you told them, some of them will be like, okay. So these are people that are raising children. There was somebody I had cause to correct. Some time back I was in Kano. My auntie was going out with a 19, 20-year-old girl, and the child did something that did not conform to the Islamic faith. It didn't conform. As women in Islam, you are not allowed to wear perfume and go out where somebody can perceive it. It is not allowed. It's a major sin. And this girl doused herself so much you need a gas mask. And as she was stepping out, I called her, I said, why? You are even fully covered, but you are, and you know there's the curses of angels on you. Then the mother was like, oh, really? I'm like, Hajia, you don't know? She said, no, I thought it just applied to married women. So you see, she honestly did not know. But this law is clear. In Islam, there's no you are married or you are not. It's either you are matured or you're not. That's what it called. But she really didn't know. So she is not equipped in that sense. This girl had been going out with her all these years and she never knew. That's what I meant by people are not even equipped in some cases. It's not that they don't want to teach. So if we are going to, even those of us that the honors are on, we have to, that's why I said we need to return. We have to have the formal education all over, because some people truly they do not know, so they cannot help.
And then there are those who do know,
but don't.
There are those who do know, but have decided that, okay, this is the general trend the world is taking now. I don't want my child to be that standalone person. I would rather my child blends in, so that things that they would ordinarily in themselves not be comfortable with, they're like, this generation. Okay, for instance, when I go shopping with my teenage daughters, there's the outfit you will pick that yours truly is not going to pay for. I won't pay for it. I have to know that your bits and lady parts and everything is reasonably decently covered. Yeah. But I also know that there's a trend now where parents are comfortable and maybe even encourage what is called low waist for young men, where you see their undies showing. Yeah, parents encourage it because they feel that's what young men now are doing. I don't want my child to be the one not doing it. Wearing leggings that are so tight that the camel toe is showing, because that's what every other person is wearing. And I'm like, I was raised to stand out, to be different, to not go with the crowd. If everybody else is doing this, do something different. Let other people look at you and want to emulate you and want to be like you. Don't always be a follower. But now you have a whole pile of parents who want their children to just follow the herd.
And for me anyway, I agree with what you're saying, and then at the end of the day we still want our children to be the kings and queens in the society, which is not possible. Now what I try to tell my children is that, see, whatever you do, whether you're eating, drinking, clothing, how you sit, how you talk to people, you should be able to know that you are a king or a queen. And how do royalty dress? How do royalty behave? No matter what, you will never see a royal person dressed anyhow. So these are all other positive ways we can begin to talk about this. Let's remind ourselves that, okay, these same children, we want them to be leaders tomorrow. Everything we're doing, we struggle to get all the money because we want to give them a better future. But this better future without morality has a big clause there, has a big question mark. They can't go far because they've missed it out. So we must go back. We still have to go back to the issue of parenting. If you don't know, that's why people go to Islamia. Even there are married women that still go to Islamia. I know there's Islamic learning for married women. And of course, there are a lot of activities in the church where people learn all of these things. So, of course, whatever it is we need to do, we must go back to the beginning, which is the family foundation, which is you and I doing the right thing, teaching the right thing, speaking the right thing, behaving the right way. And believe you me, that is where we start. Because, again, when we talk about corruption, whatsoever we talk about it, whenever we want to address corruption, if we don't start addressing moral corruption from the home basis, we're not going anywhere.
That's right.
Okay, Francis, you're an actor.
Yeah.
And you're a versatile actor. There are certain actors that are typecast. They're forever the bad guy or forever the good guy, but I've seen you in different roles. So on those occasions when you are forced to portray the bad guy, what do you come home and tell your kids?
You see, first and foremost, there's one thing.
Yeah, started scratching his ear.
No, it's not something that I even, you see, my kids sometimes they read the script, they understand my job, they know the role,
Communication.
My son, the last one, even when pretend he said daddy, and it's fake now. You say my daddy is not an armed robber. You understand me? And I've taken out time to make them understand that the nature of my job is to amplify evil for you to see that evil is wrong. And I've made them to understand that, you know, anything you do, evil must never go unpunished. So if they understand what you do, which they do, my first is 20, she's graduating next year. The second one is 13 in boarding school. The last one is 9. They understand. Sometimes they read my script. They know when those roles are bad roles, and I ask them, what are the bad things here? So they see through me what is wrong with the society and understand well that it is not good. So
essentially, they know you're just doing a job.
Yeah, they know that it's just acting.
And I want to say that if his attitude at home has been consistent,
yeah,
they won't have issues.
No, I don't say that.
If his behavior, the way he speaks, the way he does, everything is consistent. Anything else they see, they know, this is just...
This is all fine and good, sorry. This is all fine and good because we are speaking to him and, you know, some of you know him personally and stuff like that. But let me talk on the side of those of us on the other side of the box, and we see him shooting, and it's sort of, for some weak-minded people, it glamorizes that.
Yeah. Even in church, I've been faced with that. I teach in the youth church.
If I'm honest, I will not let my child attend the youth church that he is teaching at if that's what he normally is typecast as.
No, but he's not typecast.
No, that's why I said if.
Now, the truth be just like you said, they are weak minds. You know, I teach in the youth church. I tell you, you don't do drugs. Then you see me doing drugs. If you have a strong mind, you definitely understand that I don't do drugs. You understand that this is a medium of expression. Well, like you mentioned, weak minds. So weak minds, they should understand that anything you see in front of the camera is to, like, you know, preach against evil. I've had parents in the youth church who say, but this is what you're teaching the children, this is what you're doing. I say, well, the guy you see there is not me. It's a character. I play it so that your child will see the dangers of doing drugs, so that the character does not end well. It is not what you see, but how did it end? Are you following it completely? So do not just judge and say because you've seen that child, but the parents should understand that, look, there's a whole lot wrong with the system now, especially in the creative industry.
It's good that you said weak minds. That is just the problem. So many people
there's a whole lot wrong now, which we are also fighting. We fight some scripts that are totally away.
I was going to ask that question, that as a practicing Christian, are there certain roles that you've been offered and rejected?
Yes.
Such as?
I will never do anything that has to do with, you know, anything that has a pornographic, you know, perspective. I'll never do anything that has to do with, you know, being with a sense of homosexuality. You know, I can smoke on set to express the beastly nature of that character. You know, but anything that has to do within these boundaries, you know, no, that's
real immorality.
No, see, you cannot run away from expressing immorality on set, because as an actor, you are a medium of communication. For you to see that evil is really bad, I express it to a point where it nauseates you. When it nauseates you, you begin to see what has happened to me at the end. It is to tell you that this is wrong. And that's why I always tell people, you know, for the actor who comes on to play that negative role, don't punish that person. Understand where that person is going a long way to, like, you know, express evil in its totality for you to say that it is bad.
And the good thing is that with the Nigerian movie industry, it's almost always the bad guy gets punished. But I can't say that for Hollywood.
Yeah.
Sometimes in Hollywood, the bad guy gets away with it.
It's
not a movie comparison thing, and we've run out of time. And I think the consensus here is that we need, generally as Nigerians, as people, to find a way that our religiosity translates itself into something spiritual that is a guide for our lives generally. And on that note, we are concluding what I think was a very interesting discussion. I'll ask us here to just quickly wrap it up with one word each and with our names, and then we'll call it a day.
My name is Francis Duru. It's been wonderful here, and I thank God for everything that has happened.
My name is Halima Osman, and I want to say to all parents, please let your words and your action, let them be consistent. That is the first step toward having a corrupt-free and making sure that your religiosity, whatever that means to you, is really sincere. Let there be consistency in your attitude. Thank you.
Well, my name is Zainab Sadiq, and my own parting words are: learn your religion before you start being spiritual and acting out the morals. You just need to learn.
My name is Mom, Diva Mom, and they've said it all. There's nothing more to say till we meet again in the Conversations Room next time. Have a lovely day.